In the deepest hours of the night, when the noise of the world fades and the soul is left alone with its thoughts, there are moments when the heart feels heavier than the body can explain. Moments when sleep refuses to come, not because of fear but because of reflection. Moments when a believer lies still, staring into darkness, replaying memories, unanswered prayers, silent hopes, and long waits that stretch further than imagination. It is in these moments that the heart begins to question not Allah's power, but Allah's plan. There was a man named Ahmad who often found himself awake during these hours, not because his faith was weak, but because his faith was being tested in ways he never expected. Ahmad was not a stranger to patience. He had grown up hearing stories of perseverance, thus of prophets who endured trials far greater than his own. Yet knowing patience and living patience are two very different realities. When life moves slowly, when progress feels frozen, when prayers feel suspended in the air with no visible response, even the strongest heart begins to feel the weight. Ahmad's life did not collapse all at once. It unraveled gradually, quietly, in ways that were almost invisible to those around him. Plans he had built with confidence began to dissolve without warning. Efforts he poured his energy into yielded no results. Doors he was certain Allah would open remained firmly shut. Each disappointment alone was manageable, but together they formed a silence that pressed against his chest day after day. What made it harder was that Ahmad was not negligent. He prayed, he gave charity, he avoided what was haram. He sought forgiveness constantly. He made dua with sincerity, not arrogance. And yet, the waiting continued. The delay stretched longer than he thought he could bear. At first, Ahmad believed relief was just around the corner. He told himself that Allah's timing was perfect, that patience would soon be rewarded. But as days turned into months and months into years, the certainty he once felt began to waver. Not in belief, but in expectation. He still believed Allah could answer his prayers, but he no longer knew when or how or if what he was asking for was even meant for him. There is a quiet pain that exists only in believers. It is the pain of trusting Allah completely while not understanding His decree. It is the pain of knowing Allah is merciful, yet feeling overwhelmed by hardship. It is the pain of raising hands in dua and lowering them with the same unanswered questions. Ahmad began to notice that his duas changed, not in words, but in tone. His voice became softer, more restrained. He no longer asked with excitement, but with caution. He feared hoping too much. He feared disappointment more than denial. His heart learned to protect itself by expecting less, even while his faith remained intact. And yet, every night, Ahmad still stood before Allah. Sometimes for long moments, sometimes briefly, sometimes with tears, sometimes with numbness, but always with honesty. He stopped pretending he was okay. He stopped trying to sound strong in his prayers. Instead, he spoke to Allah with the raw truth of his heart. There were nights when he asked Allah for answers, not explanations, but understanding. There were nights when he asked Allah to remove the heaviness from his chest if the situation itself could not change. There were nights when he said nothing at all because words felt insufficient. What Ahmad did not realize was that Allah was responding in a way he had never been taught to recognize. Allah was not responding by changing circumstances. He was responding by reshaping the heart that carried them. Acceptance of Allah's decree does not arrive suddenly. It grows slowly, quietly, often through exhaustion. It emerges when the heart reaches a point where resistance only causes more pain. Acceptance is not surrendering hope. It is surrendering control. For a long time, Ahmad believed acceptance meant silence. He believed it meant no longer asking, no longer hoping, no longer feeling, but that was never what Allah wanted from him. Night acceptance was not about suppressing pain, it was about trusting Allah while feeling it fully. The Quran reminds believers again and again that Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. But bearing does not mean ease, it means capacity. And capacity is built through trials that stretch the heart beyond comfort. Slowly, Ahmad began to notice a shift within himself. The things that once consumed his thoughts lost their grip. The fear of outcomes softened. The desperation for answers eased. He still wanted relief, but he no longer needed it to feel close to Allah. He realized something profound. The delay was not empty, it was full of purpose. Every unanswered prayer had stripped away a layer of attachment to the dunya. Every silent night had pushed him closer to Allah, not further away. Which every disappointment had taught him to rely on Allah instead of expectations. Ahmad understood that Allah's decree is not always aligned with human desire, but it is always aligned with divine wisdom. What feels like deprivation may be protection. What feels like rejection may be redirection. What feels like delay may be preparation. There is a mercy hidden in unanswered prayers that only reveals itself with time. A mercy that shapes character, deepens faith, and anchors the heart in something greater than immediate satisfaction. Ahmad stopped measuring Allah's love by outcomes. He stopped equating success with answered du'as. He learned that Allah's closeness is not proven by ease but by presence. And Allah had never left him, not even for a moment. Some prayers were eventually answered, but not in the way Ahmad imagined. But others were never answered at all, at least not in the form he once desired. But by the time he realized this, his heart had changed so deeply that he no longer felt deprived. He had gained something far greater than what he asked for. He had gained peace. Peace that did not depend on circumstances. Peace that did not disappear with hardship. Peace rooted in trust, not control. Peace that came from accepting Allah's decree without needing to fully understand it. And this is the point where many believers misunderstand acceptance. Acceptance does not mean liking the pain. It does not mean celebrating loss. It does not mean pretending hardship is easy. Acceptance means trusting Allah's wisdom even while the heart aches. It means continuing to make dua while letting go of urgency. It means obeying Allah even when outcomes are unclear. Now it means believing that Allah's plan is kinder than your fears, even when your reality feels heavy. Ahmad's story is not unique. It lives quietly in the hearts of millions. In the student who waits for success that seems delayed. In the parent who prays for a child who struggles. In the believer who asks for healing, for marriage, for stability, for guidance, and hears only silence. But silence does not mean absence. Silence is sometimes Allah teaching you to listen differently. Allah does not rush the hearts He intends to elevate. He does not give everything at once to those He loves most. He shapes them slowly, patiently, deliberately. Because a heart that has learned acceptance can withstand the storms that would break others. A heart that trusts Allah's decree cannot be shaken by delay. A heart that surrenders control finds freedom in obedience. And when acceptance finally settles, it does not arrive with fireworks or dramatic change. It arrives quietly, like calm after a long storm, like relief that does not need explanation, like certainty that no matter what happens next, Allah is enough. And as acceptance settled deeper into Ahmad's heart, he began to notice something he had never noticed before. The trials did not disappear, but they no longer defined him. They no longer dictated his worth, his faith, or his relationship with Allah. Life continued to move with its unpredictability, but Ahmad was no longer fighting the current. He was floating with trust, even when the water felt cold and unfamiliar. There were mornings when he woke up still unsure about the future. Questions still existed. The uncertainty still hovered. But the panic that once accompanied those thoughts was gone. In its place was a quiet reliance, a knowing that whatever awaited him had already passed through the wisdom of Allah, and that knowledge was enough to steady his steps. Acceptance taught Ahmad how to breathe again. Not because life became easier, but because his heart stopped carrying what it was never meant to carry alone. He understood that the human role is effort and sincerity, not control and outcome. Control belongs to Allah alone. There is a subtle shift that happens when a believer reaches this stage. Dua no longer feels like a demand. It becomes a conversation. Worship no longer feels transactional. It becomes intimate. Faith no longer depends on results. It becomes rooted in trust. Ahmad noticed that even when hardship returned, it did not enter his heart the same way. It knocked, but it was no longer allowed to settle, because his heart had learned where to place its weight. It leaned on Allah, not on circumstances. This is the secret many search for but few understand. Peace does not come when everything aligns. Peace comes when the heart aligns with Allah's decree. When the heart stops arguing with destiny and starts trusting the one who wrote it. Allah never promised a life without pain. He promised a heart that would not be lost within it. And acceptance does not mean the believer stops asking. Ahmad still made dua. He still hoped, he still dreamed, but he no longer attached his faith to timelines. He no longer measured Allah's generosity by speed. He trusted that whatever was written for him would arrive exactly when his heart was ready to carry it. That sometimes Allah delays what you want to give you what you need first. Sometimes He removes a desire to protect you from harm you cannot see. Sometimes He withholds to draw you closer. And sometimes He gives exactly what you asked for, but only after teaching you that you would be okay even without it. This is not loss. This is preparation. Ahmad began to reflect on the lives of the prophets. None of them were spared hardship. None of them were given instant relief. Yet their hearts were the most content, the most anchored, the most connected to Allah. Their strength did not come from ease. It came from surrender. And surrender is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength because it requires the ego to step aside and allow trust to lead. There were days when Ahmad looked back at his past self, like the version of him that was restless, anxious, desperate for answers. And instead of shame, he felt compassion. He understood now that Allah was guiding him even then, even in the confusion, even in the silence. Nothing was wasted, not the tears, not the sleepless nights, not the unanswered prayers. Every moment served a purpose. Every delay shaped him. Every struggle brought him closer to a version of himself that could carry greater responsibility, greater faith, greater peace. Acceptance taught Ahmad how to live fully in the present without fearing the future. It taught him how to be grateful even while waiting. It taught him how to trust Allah without needing guarantees. And perhaps this is the greatest lesson of all, that Allah does not always change your situation to give you peace. Sometimes, though, He changes your heart so that no situation can take it away. If you are listening to this and your heart feels heavy, if you are waiting on an answer that has not come, if you are struggling to understand Allah's decree, know this. You are not being ignored. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are being shaped. Your patience is being strengthened. Your reliance is being refined. Your heart is being taught where true security lies. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means letting go of what you cannot control and holding firmly to the one who controls everything. And when you reach that point, when your heart finally rests in Allah's decree, you will realize something remarkable. The weight you carried was never meant to be yours. The peace you searched for was always within reach. And the Allah you trusted was closer than you ever imagined. Because when the heart accepts Allah's decree, it stops fighting the unseen and starts finding peace within it.